tell them after the talk.
الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we beseech Him, and we seek refuge in Allah from the evil of our own souls. Whomsoever Allah guides, then none can misguide him. Whomsoever Allah misguides, then none can guide them aright. I bear witness and I publicly testify that none has the right to be worshipped in truth but Allah, and that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is his slave and his messenger to proceed. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. We are continuing our series of lectures on atheism, the new religion. Last week we looked at the response to the problem of evil. And I would like just to recap. We said, first of all, that Allah is the all-wise, the all-knowing, the just and the merciful. We emphasized last week that our knowledge is limited and Allah's knowledge is infinite. And I gave some concrete examples. First of all, aspirin. When aspirin was first discovered, and up until the last 30 years, aspirin was used or is used as a painkiller or pain reliever. To relieve pain, we use aspirin. In the last 20 to 30 years, doctors have started to use aspirin for something very, very important, and that is to help with heart conditions as it thins the blood. So here you have a cure. Aspirin, a packet of aspirin is 30 pence, 20 pence. Here you have a cure for 20, 30p that can help people with heart conditions, rather than medication that's worth hundreds of pounds. Yes? So it shows you our knowledge is limited, Allah's knowledge is infinite. Same with aeroplanes. 100 years ago, if you said to somebody about aeroplanes, they will call you mad. They will say this person's insane. Today we know about aeroplanes. So our knowledge is limited. Why is that important in respect to evil? Because there may be a reason something happens which seems to us to be bad or evil. However, it is not bad or evil in itself. Because we said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has foreknowledge. He has knowledge of things before they happen. For example, your car may break down. You want to go on a journey to London. So your car breaks down. You get upset. You get frustrated. It's bad for you. Am I right? Because you want to go see a friend or do something in Oxford Circus. You can't do it now. However, lo and behold, you heard that there's torrential rains or there's snow and there's pile-ups on the motorway. And had you driven your car, you could have been involved in an accident. So Allah saved you from something. Did you have foreknowledge of that? No. Allah had knowledge of that. And so what you may think is evil may not be evil in itself. Same with wisdom. Wisdom. Understanding how things are applied, how knowledge is applied. Our wisdom is limited because as humans we have limited amounts of wisdom, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all wise, understands everything and places everything in its place. We say that also that everything has a purpose. Allah is the creator of everything, and evil is the creation of Allah, though we don't ascribe it to Allah. We don't say Allah is evil, no, but it's His creation, and He allows evil to take place for a reason that we may not know and we may not understand. However, this is from His profound wisdom. We also said that in respect to evil, it is not pure evil. And we gave the statement of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah in respect to that. And so then we said, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow evil to exist? Why? If evil then serves a bad purpose, it doesn't make people happy, why does Allah allow evil to exist? And we said, first of all, if we look at the first verse in Surah Al-Mulk, Allah says about creating us, why? To see who is the best in deeds. The best in deeds. Not the most in deeds, but the best in deeds. So for example, Salat Tarawih, if you pray 8 units of prayer, raka'at, with humility, khushu', taking your time, giving each verse of the Quran its rights, then this inshallah with the correct intention and all the other aspects, the pillars and the conditions of the prayer in its place, it should be accepted, am I right? Inshallah. But if you, as some masajid do, speedball the Quran, quick ruku, up, down, in, out, not giving the Quran its rights, not giving the rituals of prayer its rights, one fears that the reward for this prayer will be deficient. One fears. So, it's not about how much you do. I prayed 100 raka'at today. So you prayed 100 raka'at, all of them within 10 minutes. No. The person maybe prayed 2 raka'at in 10 minutes may be more complete than your 100 raka'at. And so life is a test. And that's how we as Muslims see life, as a test. When the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were given luxuries and things of this dunya, they were scared, they feared. They asked themselves the question, is Allah giving us everything in this life and nothing for the next life? The opposite of us. If Allah blesses us with ni'mah in this life, that's it, we're happy. We never question ourselves. But they questioned themselves because they recognize life is a test. That the more you are tested, inshallah, the closer you are to Allah. This is a reality. If you come from another country, when you are back home with very little, you may find yourself closer to Allah, more thankful. Now you're here with riches, even food. Look at food. How much food do we waste and throw out every day? Back home, do we throw out food? No. If you have meat today, and there's some left over tomorrow, what do? We warm it up, isn't it? Yeah? Some people, they throw it away in the bin. Still good. We recognize that it's a test. And so when what we think is evil comes to us, the response of the Muslim is to recognize it's a test. Testing everything. It could be testing your wealth, testing your health, testing your family. Also we said, from the reasons that Allah allows evil is that we recognize our purpose is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whatever happiness we have in this life is transitory, only for a moment. Compared, and I think it's important, we don't do this enough. Look at the verses, look at the ahadith pertaining to Jannah, and look at the verses and the ahadith pertaining to Nar. We don't do this enough. Because in our minds, we can't think of anything better than this. If I say to you, what's paradise? 7-bedroom house. In fact, I saw this man. He built. In fact, it was on one of the websites, the news websites. They're talking about this phenomena in Pakistan where people are building big houses. People living overseas building big houses. They had one brother who had been working hard all his life in Norway, washing dishes, everything. Working hard, mashallah, tabarakallah, as Muslims always do. Working hard, sending his money back to Pakistan. He built an 11-bedroom house, and each room has a bathroom and toilet. But he was saying how, look, In reality, he's not going back home to Pakistan. He's not. Reality is in Norway. His sons, his daughters are there. But he said, I built the house because my son wanted me to. And they interviewed the son. The son said, look, my wife, my kids are here. I'm not going back to Pakistan. You with me? So he's talking about, he spent all of his life savings, £300,000 in building his house, which he's not going to have, not going to use. But here comes my point. We recognize even this house and its happiness is nothing compared to what comes in the next life. If I had a brand new Ferrari driving up and down the motorway, I'd be very happy. If I had a brand new X-phone, I'd be very happy. But this is only something fleeting, here today, gone tomorrow, compared to the next life. And if you read the Quran, if you read the Sunnah, you will see that what we have here is nothing. Nothing compared to that. So we understand our purpose is to worship Allah. Also, in hardship, we know Allah. We find that when we're in hardship and difficulty, that one relies upon Allah. There's no one else to rely upon. When you have no money in your pocket, no one to ask or to borrow from, who do you ask to help you? Allah, isn't it? Yes? Straight away. Even atheists, when hard times come to them, somebody dies in their family, what do? Oh, why, God, why? They recognize God in bad times only. But we know Allah, we come closer to Allah because we know there's no way out. If you don't have Allah, you have nobody, you have nothing, can you despair? You have no hope. If you have no hope, then what's the point of living? And many people take their lives because of this. Also, another aspect of evil, why evil has been created, free will. Because you have free will, you have the choice to believe or not to believe. Many young people, when their parents say, have you prayed? They say, yeah, I've prayed. I've prayed. But they haven't prayed. They just sat in their room with their telephone twiddling around. And only when they get older, later on, they realize that they made a big mistake in not praying. Because they're going to be accountable for your pubescent, you'll be accountable for it. How many of us were in that life? Wasted our time in that life. And then we realized it was just a waste of time. That documentary after documentary of gangsters, robbers, thieves, murderers, people who killed for gangs, hitmen, so-called, killed 30 people, 40 people. They asked them, was it worth it? They all say, no, it wasn't worth it. I'm here in a cell, doing life for nothing. The thing they valued the most was their liberty, to be free. Imagine that. When you are in a wheelchair, can you go anywhere you want to? No. You are limited. But now Allah has blessed us. We can walk anywhere. Free will. So we recognize that humans have the ability to make decisions and choices. One of the young brothers was talking to me, saying about people living particular lifestyles. And we understand that we respect that. However, we have agency. We have choices to make. I can make the choice of jumping out the window or not jumping out the window. It's a choice I make. And we live in a society where we're blessed. The United Kingdom, as tough and how hard things are, we are blessed. We're in one of the 10 richest countries in the world, and we have so many options. If I decide tomorrow that I want to become a painter decorator, can I go back to college and learn? Yeah. If I said I want to become a plumber or electrician, can I go back to college and learn to become a plumber or electrician? Yes, I can. There's so many things, I have so many choices. If I want to open a business, can I open a business? Yeah. If I want to open a shop, can I open a shop? Yeah. We're blessed. I know some countries you can't open a shop just like that. You have to go and get permission and pay this money and stamp, and it's just so much. By the time you finish, you can't even be bothered anymore. To open up a masjid, anyone can open up a masjid. Very easy. Some countries, you open up a masjid, it will be called an illegal mosque and you'll be liable for prison. Look at that. So as bad as we see things, we are being blessed, and we should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thank the people as well. Thank the people. We live in a society, speaking to the brothers about they visited a European country, how in that European country people are not free like we are here. Look what happened now with Boris Johnson and the niqab issue. our Prime Minister quite rightly condemned it. And everybody condemns it as not being the right thing to say. It's insulting. If we saw a Jewish person and their distinctive dress, will we describe it in negative terms? No. No Muslim accepts that. The same as burning the Bible. Is that from Islam to burn the Bible? Where did you get that from? Never happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ or those who came after them burning the Bible. It's not from Islam. It is not Islamic to curse or cuss or to make fun or to poke fun of other people's gods. It's from the Quran. Because if we curse or make fun of other people's gods, then they do the same to Allah. Who's responsible? We are. It's not Islamic to do that. And so we recognize that people have free will. They have the ability to do things or not to do things. So a young person could become a plumber, have a halal job and go forward, or the young person could not be a plumber, could do nothing, sit at home all day, go out with the lads, going up and down town till late at night. They're complaining about the white man, or complaining about no future, or complaining about no opportunities out there. Am I right? You can use everything, there are billion of excuses to use. Billion of excuses. It's racist. And? Right, it's racist. And? What do you want to do is racist. What do you want to do? If you can't do what you need here, go to Africa. There's many opportunities. The person doesn't want to go to Africa. Why not? If it's racist, why stay here? But think about it. Even as it is racist, many people are doing things. Your own father's not sitting at home doing nothing. He's working. Your mum might even have a part-time job. If not a full-time job, she's working. So how come they can find work, but you can't? A young person can't find work. So you have free will. And so, my respected brothers and sisters, that part of free will is from the reason that evil is created. So people can make that choice. Also, as Muslims, we believe that our sins have repercussions. Don't think when you sin, man, nothing's going to happen. Things happen to you. It can affect your heart. It can affect your chances. Also, evil, one of the things of evil, that the person who is wise will detach themselves from the dunya. That you take what you need from the dunya, but don't make the dunya your hopes, your dreams and your aspirations only. Some of us, when it comes to dunya, we have high dreams. When it comes to our religion, no dreams and aspirations. It should be the other way around. The dunya is a means for you to achieve your Islamic goals. If it means by having my own business, I can pray, fast, do the things I need to do, look after my family, then it's good to have a business. If it means to have my own business, have a nice car, big house, no time to pray, the person needs to think, to assess which is their priority. Also, evil is a means of purifying one's heart. Because when one does evil, one repents. Or when evil is done to the person thinks, what have I done to attract this evil? For this bad thing to happen to me, maybe I need to purify myself. Maybe I need to turn back to Allah. Also, we said that all is good for the believer. From the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ from Sahih Muslim, all is good. The Prophet said, the affair of the Muslim is wonderful. When good comes to the Muslim, they say Alhamdulillah. When bad comes to the Muslim, they say Alhamdulillah. Everything is good for the Muslim. Also evil, as I mentioned earlier on, it expiates your sins. The person who is doing bad, when they repent to Allah, it's wiped away. The Prophet ﷺ was given the choice of interceding for those who are sinful and those who are not sinful, and he chose to intercede for those people who are sinful from his ummah. Perhaps, if Allah blesses you, you may be from those people. Also we said that the wisdom of evil or bad befalling people is relief. The relief of paradise. If you have a hard life, a difficult life, but you are there praying to Allah, being patient with Allah, inshallah at the end of this life you have paradise. There's a hadith about that. about the person brought back to life, who went to paradise after having a difficult life, and he said, I've never seen anything bad before this. So paradise was beautiful, eclipsed, overcome every difficulty he had before that. And so for the believing man, the believing woman, that if we have a difficult life or calamities in this life, the relief comes in the next life. With that being said, my respected brothers and sisters, what I like to do is to move on to the philosophy of science, which is very, very important. When we say science, I've been speaking about this throughout the whole program, because there are many myths out there. You have people say, well, God doesn't exist. Science has proven God doesn't exist. Am I right? You've heard that before. But I always get us to think this question: how did science prove God didn't exist? How? How did it do it? How? What was the experiment that was done to prove God doesn't exist? Isn't it? To prove something exists or doesn't exist, what's the experiment? There is no experiment, and I'll clarify later. Because science is a means to discover the truth through observation, by looking at the natural world, things around us. Science doesn't deal with things you can't see. The role of science is not to see, do angels exist or do not exist. The role of science is not to see, does Allah exist or doesn't exist. It's not the role of science, but to observe things that you can see, and then to reason, to then make ideas, to then make hypothesis, what we believe it is or isn't, works or doesn't work, based upon this. And also to look at facts, what it considers to be scientific facts, if there are things such as scientific facts, and laws. Why do things happen? Why does every year the weather change? What's the law behind that? What's the law behind throwing something up and it coming down? This is science. Science, however, for many people, seems to be much more than it is. And this is the difference between a real scientist and somebody who has an ideology about science. Lots of the people you will see talk about atheism, where they may have a scientific background, are ideologues. It's all about ideology. Because a scientist recognizes his or her limits, even if they are an atheist. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes we do discredit to scientists. Because most scientists don't talk about does God exist or doesn't exist. It's not part of their work. There's a natural world. They want to discover laws, understand how things work. They want to look at diseases, for example. Much science lays around biology and diseases, how to cure that disease, how the disease works. This is their work. They don't want to get into arguments about God. It's beyond their work. But there are some people, and they have some false assumptions. So they, for example, they say, science is the only way for us to find out about truth. That's the first assumption. The only way to find out about truth is through science. We're going to look at these one by one. They also say that since science is so successful, scientific conclusions must be truthful. So science is successful. It is successful. We use it every day in our lives. Then, what it concludes must be true. Also, that science leads to certainty. Whatever science says is true must be true. And last of all, that science is based upon the idea of naturalism. That is, only dealing with things in the natural world. That's all we deal with. Yes? So let's look at the first one. Science is the only yardstick for truth. First of all, the problem with that is, and we'll talk about this in detail, is how do you know who your father is? If you're not an orphan, you will say yes. Am I right? How do you know who's your father? One of my relatives, our auntie, said to him, your mother was very close to a particular gentleman, And you know, you look like that gentleman. She came to him as an adult and said that to him. What's she trying to say? That's your father. Your father's not your father. Put aside morally, is that something you as an auntie, even if you think it, should bring it up? Now that person was assured of himself and didn't really care. But somebody else, that could have sent their whole world crashing. Isn't it? Yeah. If you think that somebody is not their father, I personally want to go to them and say, well boy, you know, look, anyway, you look like this other guy, you look like your father. You could send somebody crashing, destroy their whole life. But you would say, I know my father is my father, because people tell me he's my father. My mum said he's the father. He's on the birth certificate. Testimony. Testimony is very important. Testimony, good testimony can send you to prison for the rest of your life, isn't it? 30 years, 40 years of your life. So we see here from the get-go, from the beginning, that science is not the only way to ascertain truth. There are other ways of ascertaining truth. But there are problems with science. First of all, science is limited to observation, the things that we can see. The things that we can see. There are some things, first of all, we can't see. For example, the world of the jinn, the world of the spirits, we can't see. And more importantly, our knowledge of what we can see is limited. It's limited. For example, can we see atoms? No. Can we see the electron? You know electrons?
Yeah.
Can we see them? No. You can't see electrons. But we build big theories about atoms and big theories about electrons, yes or no? So, we can't see atoms and electrons, though we build theories about it. So observation is limited. If we just base it upon things that we could see, we would never have theories about atoms or theories about electrons. We wouldn't. Also, we'll talk about each of these in detail as well. Science is morally neutral. When it comes to morals, science doesn't have a position on it. What is good or bad, science doesn't take a position on it, which is very important. We'll talk about that in a minute. Also, science can't give us conclusions about the personal. And we'll talk about that as well in a second. The personal. What is in your mind? So, for example, one of the problems of those people who don't believe, who only believe in what you can see, is the consciousness. Where's your consciousness? Do you have consciousness? Of course you do. You're thinking, you're living, the things you do, picking up this cup is all from your consciousness. Can you see consciousness? No. What happens in your brains is there are triggers in the cells, the neutrons trigger. You see that triggering? Then we say those triggers show consciousness. But is that true? No. One of the problems with that is some mental diseases, the triggering doesn't happen or happens too much. And so, one of the problems with neuroscience, science of the brain and how it works, is what is consciousness? Because consciousness is more than just the brain triggers. It's something deeper than that. The mind, when we talk about the mind, why is it some of us will get divorced and go crazy, and some of us will get divorced and be happy? Our emotion and psychology is different, isn't it? Why is it some people, small things, they have anxiety, and some people, small things, they don't have anxiety? Why? Consciousness. Where is that consciousness? You can't say it's just in the brain. For example, some parts of the brain control, definitely, that region of the brain controls particular functions. However, we have found that people have damaged parts of their brain, but it's re-triggered to other parts of the brain. We are now doing studies about what we call brain elasticity. The brain is being elastic, can adapt. Are you with me? Part of that is when somebody dies in your family, at first you're very sad, but after a period of time you get used to it. You slowly get used to it. Also, you may have damage to parts of your brain, then your brain re-triggers and rewires itself. Rewires, so you still have that same function. Also, science can't answer why things happen. Why are things happening? The why. The big questions. Why were we created? Can science answer that? No. Doesn't have an answer for that. Also, There's certain what we call metaphysical questions about things that we can't see beyond our physical understanding. The jinn, can science answer that? No. Also, science can't always provide the proof for everything. So let's go through these one by one. Science is limited to observation. So we said that scientists, they focus on what they can see of the natural world. And so their whole truth is only based upon what they can see. If they can't see atoms, they make theories. Theories may be true, may be incorrect. They may say this particular gas is triggered when something happens, and in 100 years later realize it's not a gas actually what happens, something else happens. So by focusing on observations, they are limited. Also, science is morally neutral. When it comes to moral issues, they don't take a stance. This is very, very important. Atheists today will argue that science can answer moral questions. And they say, based upon human well-being, what's good for humans, and that can be scientifically proven good for humans, proves that science, when it comes to morals, science can determine morals. Well, there are loads of problems with that. For example, the issue of incest. Incest with contraception. So, a parent may have a relationship with their child and stop pregnancy for contraception. So it's a big idea in the masjid. It's a very, very important one. Does it mean it's good for human well-being? It doesn't mean it's good for human well-being, is it? I think all of us would think it's morally repugnant. There was a singer from a group called the Mamas and the Papas, a 60s group. And one of the lead singers, he had a long-term relationship with his daughter, where he was able to convince her it was consensual. She thought she wanted to have this relationship with her father. Only years after him dying, she realized that it wasn't consensual. She was psychologically manipulated into it. And that's the reality. So, when you say science can answer moral questions, no, it can't. Because moral questions, by their nature, are beyond science. Because moral questions are about what's right and what's wrong. And science doesn't answer the question, what's right and what's wrong. It bases on what you can see and observe, not what's in people's hearts. And that's why we go back to the moral argument. Most of our morals in this society comes from where? Come from scripture, isn't it? Though we try to negate it, much of the morals in this society come from scripture till today. Why can't we kill each other? There's some people we believe should be killed. Mass murderers, rapists, we believe they should be killed, isn't it? Or they should be allowed to live. They should be killed, isn't it? Many people feel that way. Pedophiles should be killed. That's what people feel. Am I right? Yes? Why don't we just kill people? Because morally it's unjust to kill people, especially without a trial. Why should a mass murderer, why is it repugnant what they do? Because morally, outside of ourselves, we learn this morals that we shouldn't kill or harm other human beings. Am I right? A psychopath may look at another human being and not see a human. Just see like a toy or a doll. Do we all accept their understanding? No, we don't. We say, no, that's a human being. You've harmed a human being. And for that, there's a punishment. Yeah? And so, one of the things about science is that science can't answer the question of morals because many questions of morals are beyond the natural world, are beyond what we can see, what we can feel, what we can touch, are linked to things greater than ourselves. Also, we said, it can't answer the question why. Why? Why were we created? Can science answer that question? No. And I say this every week. They said that humans, the first cell, which after millions of years or thousands of years went on to produce humans, started off in some sludge, in some mud. And they simulated experiments. And they failed every single time. Why would life become something on this planet? Why? They can't answer that question. But we know as Muslims, why were we created? To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, you also said that science can't test the personal. What's in your mind, in your heart, can't be tested. Do you know that some people train, you know, we have something called a lie detector. The lie detector. Now, what's interesting, in the movies, they make out as if the lie detector tells the truth. Am I right? Which is incorrect. On what's that Jeremy Kyle show, yeah? Are you the child's father? You take a lie detector test, am I right? But in most courts of law, especially in America where they used to use it, it's inadmissible. Why? Why can't you admit into court the lie detector test? Excellent. The lie detector doesn't detect what's inside of you. It doesn't look into your eyes, then penetrates your soul and knows what's happening. No. It's based upon physiological changes. So, for example, your temperature increasing. When you lie, your temperature increases. The changes that happen in your body, yeah? And so, based upon those changes, it will determine that's a lie. If there are no changes, it determines it's not a lie. There's lots of problems with that. Problem number one, if you have anxiety, what happens to you? Your temperature, no matter what happens, even if you're telling the truth, you start to get nervous, your temperature goes up. So you would be accused of telling a lie when you're actually telling the truth. Also, another problem is, some people are trained, for example, I think Navy SEALs in America are trained to pass lie detector tests. If they are captured by the enemy, and the enemy wants to find out information. And it's very interesting, the history of trying to find out the truth. Very, very interesting how they've tried to develop medicine to inject into people to find out the truth, and it hasn't worked. It's never worked because the human consciousness is so deep. So Navy SEALs are trained, if they're captured by the enemy, they say, okay, we want to find out information about you. So they tie you up, connect a lie detector test to you, and they start asking you questions. Right, where's your headquarters? Your headquarters is in such and such a place. The Navy SEAL, because they are trained, is able to pass the test. So rather than sweating or whatever, they're able to pretend and say, no, it's not true. No, 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 all the time. Or yes, yes, yes. They're trained. So if you're able to train for a lie detector test, you'll never know the person. You'll never know what's inside of somebody unless they honestly, truthfully tell you. So how can science answer these questions? What's inside of people? How? And this is the problem sometimes with medical drugs. We look at schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. It may work for some people, work for many people, not work for many people. It may work for a period of time and stop working. You're dealing with the personals. Many of these cases are to do with personal, emotional things that are happening inside the people. So when it comes to what's inside, like now, we are here, sitting here. Someone is thinking, my God, when's this lesson finishing? Someone is thinking, I just left PlayStation, my friends on PlayStation, I wonder what level they're at now. Am I right? Someone's playing with their telephone, oh, when's this guy going to keep quiet? Someone's listening and writing notes. Every single one of us, inside of ourselves, are doing something different, isn't it? This is the nature of the personal. Can science go inside of your body and see what's inside? No. So how can science find the ultimate truth when it can't do that? Also, we said that science can't answer some metaphysical questions. And I say this every week. When people say God doesn't exist, that means you have scientifically proven God doesn't exist. What was the scientific experiment you used to say God doesn't exist? What was it? What? What did they do? It's never happened. So how can you say something doesn't exist scientifically when, according to scientific method, you've never used that method to prove it doesn't exist? And many scientists quite rightly hold that it's not the object of science. Because science doesn't know how to construct a God experiment. Or how to, you see these programs, especially from America, they go ghost hunting. So they make all these different contraptions to find ghosts. They make these things that if the electricity current changes in the room, the meter starts to go crazy. All kinds of things to capture ghosts. They actually capture a ghost? Do they? They make all these type of ghost traps, they call them. Are they able to capture a ghost? No. Because it's beyond our experience or observation. How are you going to capture something you don't know anything about? And so there are many things that science can't answer. Do we have a soul? If we don't, we have a soul. What does the soul, S-O-U-L, experiment look like? What? Because using scientific method to make sure it doesn't exist, you've got to use a method, isn't it? What does that experiment look like? There is no experiment. There is no experiment. So it can't deal with these questions. Also we find that there are other means of attaining knowledge. For example, mathematics. Mathematics is not considered to be purely science, though science uses mathematics. Can we use mathematics to find the truth? Can we think about it? We can, can't we? Certain truths from mathematics. 1 + 1 is 2. Yes or no? If you get one slap, then another slap. How many slaps have you had? 2 slaps, yes? That's mathematics, not necessarily science. Those science may use mathematics, but it's not pure science mathematics, no. Also, we can find the truth, like I said, through testimony. Through testimony. If somebody came ordinarily and said, is your dad, or your mum, that would be an insult, isn't it? It would be considered insult. But it's a valid, logical, rational question. How do we prove that your parents are your parents, or your grandparents are your grandparents? Through testimony. And here comes something very interesting. If you were to ask like Sam Harris said, the state of Israel deserves to exist because Jews have been hated throughout time and history, so they deserve a country to call their own. Now we find it abhorrent, the hatred of anybody just because of who they are. And we don't uphold that people should be hated because of who they are. But does it justify a group of people, whoever they are, having a country of their own? Does it justify? It's a moral answer, is that scientific or moral? It's moral, isn't it? Yes? To say the state of Israel deserves to exist because of hatred of the Jews is a moral, not a scientific answer or question. It's a moral question. And you have many atheists, for example, who say the Jews deserve Israel. You know, us from Africa, we are Bible fanatics, am I right? When I went to the Caribbean, they refer to the Jews as the children of God. The children of God, that's how they refer to Jews. And they say they deserve the state of Israel. They deserve it because of why? What's the justification? Why? Why does the state of Israel deserve to exist? I'm not questioning personally, does it or does it not have? I'm questioning the type of logic you use to justify particular questions and conclusions. What's the rationale for saying the state of Israel exists, do you think? They're evangelical Christians. What do you think they would say? Alhamdulillah. Exactly. They say the Bible. Now, if you were to ask any atheist, do you believe in the Bible? What's their response? Don't believe in it, isn't it? I saw Dawkins was asked about, do you believe in Allah? Do you believe in the Bible? Do you believe in this? Like, this guy, is he crazy? I don't believe in God. Then, upon what basis do you accept the Bible to be a basis to establish that the Jews were even in Israel? If you don't believe in the Bible, based upon what? Because this is testimony, isn't it? Testimony of unknown authors. Nobody knows who wrote the Old or New Testament. That's not what I say. That's what biblical scholars say. Okay? That's what the scholars of the Bible say. Do you know why? You don't know why? Is there proof? There's no proof. The Old Testament, we don't have ancient manuscripts for the Old Testament. The ancient manuscripts for the New Testament is in Greek. And Jesus didn't speak Greek. nor Hebrew, spoke Aramaic actually. Are you with me? What's the proof then? Testimony. Testimony could be correct or incorrect, am I right? If you were to ask me, is so-and-so so-and-so's father, I may say no. But I'm ignorant, I don't even know who I'm talking about, am I right? If you go and ask the relatives, they say, yeah, he's his father, I was there when the baby was born. His mother said that's the father, and I was there when the baby was born. Testimony. Testimony can be correct and incorrect. So testimony, as we see from atheists themselves, can be a form of proof. Is testimony scientific? No, it's not scientific. Is it a form of truth? Yeah. So not all truth then comes from science. Now scientists, as we said, have some assumptions. They have a number of assumptions. Things they believe to be correct. From the things they believe to be correct, that science works. Do you know, for example, for hundreds of years, people believed in Newtonian physics, the physics of Sir Isaac Newton. Do you know that? However, today, do we believe in Newtonian physics? No. We don't believe in Newtonian physics. It's not considered to be true. One of the beauties of our day and age, and I think there's a hadith about the signs of the Day of Judgment, the spreading of knowledge. I think there's a hadith about that. I don't think in any time in human history do we have access to as much knowledge as we have today. You can go into archive.org. You know archive.org, the American company? Archive.org. It's an online library of sound, of picture, of everything, mashallah, tabarakallah. It's an online library. And you can type in, for example, books written in the 1600s, and boom, they come up in front of you. Do you know that? Yeah. So you can go into archive.org, type in Sir Isaac Newton, and the books that he wrote in the 1800s, wherever he was around, 1700s I think it was, or 1600s. One of the two. Huh? 1700s, exactly like that. You can find them online. You can download them, you can read them, even people publish them and sell them, believe it or not. But his idea of how the sun, the moon, the planets, the stars worked, for hundreds of years people used that model. However, today, scientists don't believe it to be correct. But here comes the question. For those hundreds of years people used it. Did it work? It did work. It predicted things. It did work. Even though it was incorrect science, it worked. So what this shows us, that science may work, which it does, but also certain things which are not science does work as well. Yes? So science doesn't have a monopoly of working, and sometimes what we think is scientific that works may be totally incorrect. May be totally incorrect. Another issue they have, that science leads to certainty. Not everything in science is certain. I'll give you a very, very common example of that. A very, very common example of science doesn't lead to certainty. Looking at medicine. Medicine used in depression and anxiety doesn't always work for everybody. Why? Malaria medicine. Who has been to a country there's malaria? MashaAllah, all of us. I think so, yeah. Have you taken malaria tablets before?
Yeah.
Has it not worked for you? It worked. Have you known people who take malaria tablets that didn't work? Yeah. Yeah. Because not every single medication works for everybody. Why? Because we're a complicated organism amongst things. That's why there's many types of cancer. Because there are many types of, there's the complexity of our bodies. And us as human beings. I was listening to a gentleman the other day, we were talking about certain groupings of people have certain diseases that are unique to them. That you find in abundant numbers amongst those people. And so, science doesn't also always lead to certainty. Another assumption is the problem of what we call naturalism. Naturalism is the idea, my respected brothers and sisters, that we only deal with the natural world, the world that we can see, the world that we can touch, and only. And we said that science is not just observation. You see something is scientific, no. Because human consciousness, which is the subject of science, sciences deal with it. We talk about, for example, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, it's all linked to human consciousness, am I right? We use scientific methods to deal with this. If we only deal with the natural world, then how do we deal with some emotional and psychological problems that you can't see them or touch them? Can you see anxiety? If I was to say to drink a blue dye, if I put it in a microscope, will I be able to see anxiety? No. You won't. So not everything in the natural world you can observe and you can see. Not everything which has a result in the natural world. So if I have schizophrenia, for example, it has a reality in the real world. I may see things, I may hear things. It may cause me to do things which you can see, yes? But the cause, you may not be able to see the underlying cause. We don't know what causes schizophrenia. There is no conclusion today about schizophrenia. There's a belief that it has biological roots and triggered by the environment. But what are those biological roots? We don't know. And what is that trigger in the environment? We don't know. It's not known. So, if everything in the natural world, not only we don't know it, but not everything that we as humans deal with are in the natural world. And so, my respected brothers and sisters, Jazakumullah khair. I know that was a bit heavy, wasn't it? It was a bit heavy, yes? But it was about science. To show us that some of our conclusions that we have about science, some of the things that we say about science, we need to think. Haven't finished. So when people tell you it is a scientific fact, is that true? It's a scientific fact? No. Because what's a fact today may be disproven tomorrow. That's the nature of science. What's a fact in one scientist may not be a fact in another scientist. We see this all the time. You heard that drinking too much coffee is bad for you. Am I right or wrong? Is drinking too much coffee good or bad for you? We have another study that says it's good for you. Now, here comes the problem now with science. Sometimes science is not scientific. Sometimes science is motivated by profit. Not him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but by money. If I have a company, if you go to Democracy Now, there's an interview of a black man, a professor of UCLA, leading university. He was paid by a company that makes seeds, does seeds, to do some research into seeds. They paid him. In doing his research, he found out that consuming food from these seeds, it makes males female and female males. They found that rats or mice that ate food made from these seeds, so it grew into plants or vegetables, the rats and mouse that ate the vegetables not only mimicked female behavior, so they would do things that females did, but almost became totally like females. Now this company, on hearing this, started off slowly, well, hey, we don't need to print this, till they went all out war against the gentleman. Tried to call him a liar, tried to say that, he's making things up, all kinds of stuff like that. Tried to discredit the man. Why did they try to discredit the man? Because he's publishing his research. This is what I found. I'm not lying against you. But they tried to all out, discredit him. And the sad thing about it, his university turned around and said to him, boy, you're on your own here, son. You get me? Why? Because his university, they get funded. Who funds the research? Our universities in the UK are fantastic. We've got the best universities in the world. I'm just amazed. So many scientific discoveries you hear from a British university. But what happens? It's discovered, taxpayers' money helps fund the research, then companies buy this research. So a company will say, hey, you discovered this, we'll give you 20 million, 10 million for this discovery, and then patent it and sell it. So research itself sometimes can be tainted by companies. So a coffee company funding research, surprise, surprise, coffee is good for you. A tea company funding research, surprise, surprise, coffee is bad for you, yes? This is a reality. So we are confused. Up until recently they said oils and butter were bad for you. Am I right? Now we're hearing oil and butter is better than margarine. Am I right? In fact, it's such in the West that we live in confusion. Unless you go to your own sources and do your own research, you don't know what's good for you or what's bad for you. We hear one day this causes cancer, the next day this doesn't cause cancer. One day it doesn't cause cancer, the next day, yeah, it causes cancer. We live in confusion. Because, one, science itself is not certainty, not absolute knowledge. And two, science itself can be corrupted. And a good example is the thalidomide, I never can pronounce it. A particular medication that was given to pregnant women back in the 60s. When they gave birth to children with defects. No arms, no legs. And this was hush-hushed by the medical companies. Hush-hush. I know people in countries where they're given medication which is not supposed to be given to pregnant women. Because a person read it, they didn't take it. Imagine if they didn't read it. But hey, you have medical representatives telling them, yeah, you know when pregnant women come to you, give them that medication. We don't know what's the consequences of it. And so when we talk about scientific facts, is it scientific fact? There could be difference of opinion between the scientists if it's good or bad, if it's right or wrong. Also, the research based upon this could be tainted. We don't know. And so this brings us to a conclusion. Jazakumullah khair. Any questions? We open the floor from the sisters. They can write them and send them to us, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.